In 2017, we got a website refresh for the budget version of the iPad, $330. In 2018, we kind of got an event, except it wasn't live streamed, it wasn't public, and they unveiled the 2018 iPad, which got the A10 Fusion chip, the new gold color, Apple Pencil support, and that's pretty much about it. In 2019, what exactly is Apple going to do? How do they make sure they release a product that doesn't butcher the still available 10.5-inch iPad Pro? It doesn't distort the lineup too much so that there's simply just too many size options for people to choose from. Whatever they're going to do, we're probably going to mention it today, in which I will be theorizing all of the possible outcomes for March of 2019 and likely the first hardware launch for Apple in the next year. So I think it's a given that we're probably not going to get a March event. There was one in 2016 that was super minor and not much happened, and I think Apple has learned since then to do this just via website refresh or just doing small personal events, not for everyone, just invite only, they don't live stream it. So in 2019, I'm ruling out that possibility. I don't think there's going to be a live streamed public event that everyone can come and watch, because they probably don't have that much to talk about or unveil. But that doesn't mean we won't get some type of website refresh where they just say the store is going to go down for a little bit. When it comes back up, there will be a new iPad available. Now, the problem with the 2019 iPad is that since there's already so many iPads available, how do you upgrade the current 2018 iPad without making it butcher too easily the 10.5-inch iPad Pro that's currently available? And how do you not distort the lineup even more than it already is? So here's a few possible outcomes. So for one, let's just talk about what they could do to the 2018 iPad to update it for 2019. For one, they could fix probably the most common complaint with the new iPad. For one, they could fix probably the most common complaint with the 2018 iPad, laminate the display, bring the glass and the screen right next to each other, finally extinguish all of those complaints and just go back to how all iPads used to be. But then the real conundrum comes to what do they do with the CPUs? See, right now the 2018 iPad has an A10 chip. If they upgrade it to the A10X, now you have the same CPU in the $650 iPad Pro that you have in the $330 budget iPad, which maybe Apple's okay with you just paying double for essentially ProMotion display, slightly slimmer bezels, 10.5-inch design instead of 9.7. So you get a smart connector, you get quad speakers, but overall a slightly better iPad for double the price point, which would make the iPad Pro kind of useless for a lot of people and would only be serving a very, very narrow audience, especially if they have the same CPU. And some people are probably pitching the idea that the 2019 iPad should have an A11 chip and be really, really fast and updated for the future, but that's unlikely to happen because Apple's keeping this budget. It's not supposed to be the most powerful iPad available. So I imagine if they are going to do anything with the CPU, it would likely be an A10X update. Or the most boring possible option, they'll just leave it at the A10. They won't update it at all. And they'll simply laminate the display, maybe make really tiny design changes like update it to Touch ID version 2 so things are a little bit faster, update the camera quality a little bit, and then just leave it at that. Say it's the new iPad, but barely anything really changed. Still has Apple Pencil support. I doubt that any of the new revolutionary features we saw with this year's iPad Pros, like USB-C or the new Apple Pencil docking method, I sadly doubt that will make its way to the budget iPad this quickly. And honestly, that should be a whole separate video, the idea of the iPad Pro like budget version where it has not as many features as the Pro versions, but still has Face ID and USB-C. That's an even more different direction with the iPad, and I don't think that's what the 2019 one is going to be. Now, another possibility that I personally find more interesting is what if they don't update the iPad at all? We keep the 2018 iPad the exact same way it is, but we don't get nothing in March, which, keep in mind, that's still a possibility. Nothing comes out, in which all of this is meaningless, but hey, I'm here to theorize. So say nothing gets updated in regards to the 2018 iPad, it stays there, but then they finally, and at last, update the iPad mini, which it desperately needs one right now. I feel like at any day it could get a spec bump, or at any day it could get discontinued, but there are, just floating around a little bit, a couple of rumors and a couple of reports that the iPad mini could be making a comeback, which I'm very interested in that idea because that product line, I think, has a certain demographic of people that really, really enjoy it, and it hasn't been touched, it hasn't been updated in years. It's still rocking the A8 chip, the same CPU you have in a smart speaker. Apple's HomePod has the A8 chip, and that's still powering all of iOS on the iPad mini. So if they were to release the iPad mini 5, I guess they would call it. Knowing Apple, though, they'll just call it the new iPad mini. You could have Apple Pencil support, you could update it to have the A10 chip. A lot of people forget it has the same resolution competition as the 2018 iPad, just in a smaller screen space, meaning the pixel density on the iPad mini is a lot higher than other iPads at 326 pixels per inch, which on a 7.9-inch display is pretty rich and pretty clean. You could add the new color options, and I think that could complete the iPad lineup pretty well. You'd have 12.9-inch iPad Pro, 11-inch iPad Pro, 10.5-inch iPad Pro, 9.7-inch iPad, and 7.9-inch iPad mini. This would have a screen size for basically anyone you could imagine. It will definitely feel weird if they're still releasing products in 2019 that have Gen 1 Touch ID, white bezels, the headphone jack. The iPad lineup will definitely get more distorted, but honestly, I would rather have a more diverse lineup than no upgrade at all in the first quarter of 2019. I would rather them do something with the iPad mini than just leave it the way it is and keep selling it, because it starts at $400 and they only sell the 128 gig option, and I'm very confused by that. If they updated the iPad mini and had it be the budget option alongside the current 2018 iPad, maybe the mini could be more affordable and start at like $250 or $270. Get the starting price of iPads even lower than it already is, and have it support the Apple Pencil so that a lot of students out there who like to have the iPad to hold in one hand, but also have the other hand to take notes in, I think that would be a really, really nice untapped market that a lot of customers would buy into if Apple decided to upgrade the iPad mini finally after all these years. Getting an A10 chip after having an A8 chip for all this time, think of the ways Apple would market that. They'd be like, look how much faster it is than the A8. It's 2 times faster, such a performance boost in such a compact device. Now, I admit it would be frustrating to have the old-fashioned pairing method of plugging in the Apple Pencil, trying to not lose that cap, but a lot of people might not end up using the Apple Pencil with the iPad mini anyway. They could get the Logitech Crayon for cheaper. They can get any stylus they want. Regardless, though, having an iPad at retail start at a much lower price for people at the lower size option, I think would attract a lot of new customers and a lot of people that were hoping to get an iPad but don't have all the spare cash for these larger size options that Apple keeps selling for. So at the end of the day, iPad lineup would be super, super diverse. Some would obviously say distorted. It's very complicated how many different screen sizes developers are going to have to optimize for, especially since the 11-inch iPad Pro is not exactly 4x3, which is annoying, very confusing, and the fact that the new iPad Pros have USB-C and Face ID, and the old ones have Lightning and Touch ID. It's almost like they should be considered different product lines, but they're still both iPads running the same iOS. But regardless, I really hope these iPad mini rumors are true. I think there's a ton of people out there that would buy it if Apple made a super affordable, super budget iPad mini. But of course, I want to hear what you guys think. Are the iPad mini customers out there? Let me know in the comments below if you would get a super budget iPad mini if Apple updated it. And I really do believe there's quite a bit of you. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.